Hello and welcome to our weekly Parshas Shiur with the commentary of the Alshich. This week's Shiur is to celebrate a milestone in the recovery of somebody, let's just call him a friend of mine called Jonathan. And Jonathan has been given the all clear from an illness that he went through recently. And he wanted the Shiur to be dedicated to celebrate the fact. If you would like to have the Shiur dedicated for something of a celebratory nature in your life or to commemorate somebody, then it is yy@rabbiyyy.com, yy@rabbiyyy.com, and I shall be more than happy to dedicate the Shiur. This week's Shiur is on Parshas Vayeshev. There is no doubt whatsoever that we're about to explore through the eyes of the Alshich some of the most crucial and critical facts, insights into human nature, psychology, and insights into Jewish history and Torah that we will ever see anywhere. This is critical. It's the fracture, the first fracture in the Jewish people, the fracture between Joseph and his brothers. When I say the first fracture, of course, that implies it was the first of many, but really it was the precursor. And what was going to happen here would show us and does show us exactly how things go wrong and how the train of the Jewish people becomes derailed. So it's very, very important. And so without any further ado, I suppose if I manage to get this to do its usual thing and hopefully open, I can share the screen with you. Something's happening. Yes, the preview thing or whatever it's called is, I think it's opening. Ooh, yes, good. I can now share the screen. So am I sharing the screen with you? Yes, I am. My computer is doing funny things. I've been trying to get this off and running for quite a while. So here is the Parsha. And if I move it aside, it would be nice if I can, yeah, there we go. If I can do that, and then if I bring up the commentary of the Alshich, we'll have them side by side. And there it is. So there, we move that over there. And if I shrink that down a bit so that the match there, that would look a little bit nicer, I think. And that's what we're going to be looking at. Okay, so a simple story, or so it seems. And how often do the stories of the Torah, which seem simple simply when you read them in English, are totally different and utterly, utterly different when you look at them in the language they're meant to be looked at and through the eyes of the Alshich. Here we go. So here's the story over here. Vayeshev Yakov be'eretz Meguri Aviv, be'eretz Canaan. So Yakov seems to have secured a little island of peace and tranquility in his rather dramatic and hectic life. And he's living in Eretz Canaan. Ele told us Yakov. And then it says, these are the generations of Yakov, Yosef. Joseph ben Sheva Esrashana was 17 years of age. He was shepherding. He was not shepherding, I'm sure of that. He was shepherding his brothers with the flock, and he was a lad. Esbene Zilpah with the sons of Bilhah and Zilpah, Neshei Aviv, his father's wives. But Yoba Yosef is Dibosam Roy Avihem, and Joseph brings an evil report about his brothers, or his half brothers really, to their father. Yisrael loves Yosef Mikol Bonav, and Yisrael loves Joseph from all his sons. He bends because he's the son of his old age. And he made for him a garment. Very hard to describe this garment. Some people say it was a garment of many colors. In fact, as you probably know, there's a Broadway show called Joseph and the Technicolor Dreamcoat. But we'll see exactly what the garment was shortly. But here comes the outcome of this. The year Yakov ki Osav Aviyam, as we call Yakov, and the brothers saw that this one, Joseph, and it doesn't call him by name, but because they didn't call him by name, this one their father loved from all the brothers, and they hated him. Lo yochru daber lo shalom, and they weren't able to speak to him in peace. That's really what we're going to be looking at there. So 4 psukim, which tells the story, the well-known story of the enmity between Joseph and the brothers. Now, let's pause, take a deep breath, and start all over again. But we'll look at the questions of the Alshich. And over here, he asks 8 questions on the 4 psukim. So 2 questions on each posuk, I suppose, although it doesn't work out quite like that. Let's look. He starts off by saying, over to the Alshich, Roy losi slave. It's appropriate that you should give heart, think, consider. 1. El Omra Ela Todis Yakov. It says over here, these are the generations of Yakov. And we're only starting in the second pasuk. We're not talking about the first. Ela Todis Yakov, Yosef. These are generations of Yakov. Now, the Alshich says it should say the generations. That would be Reuven, Shimon, Levi, Yehuda, Issachar, Zvulun, all the rest of his sons. But instead of saying all of his sons, who were his progeny, his generations, it says just one, Yosef. And that's obviously the question. Let's see. Let's have the Alshich express that. Al Omer, we should consider why it says Elatodis Yaakov ve'ina maske rakas Yosef. But it doesn't mention any of the others. It only mentions Yosef. Question 1. Question 2, it says he was 17 years of age. So the Alshich says, Lama Madia Shoya ben Sheva, Osra, Ezra Shana. Why does it say he's 17 years of age? Shoya Roy Esecho, and he shepherded his brothers with the flock. He was 17 years of age. Roy Esecho, and he shepherded his brothers with the flock. Fine. Very good. Who needs to know that? And then it says, Gimel Omer, Betsoin, Bahoyel Omer, Hatson. So it says, shepherds, again, let's get to the pasuk here, 17 years of age. Hoyeroya es Echov Hatson, says the Alshich. It should say Loimer Hatson. So it should say, instead of Batson, Hatson. It should say he shepherded the flock with his brothers. Then it says Lama Madir Shahayanar. Let's say he was a lad. If he was 17 years of age, he's not going to be a geriatric. So if he said he's 17, we already know he's a nar, he's a lad. So why does it have to repeat it? And it says, and not just that say it doesn't just say he was a lad, but it says hu na'ar es b'nei Bilha ve'es b'nei Zilpa, with the sons of Bilha and with the sons of Zilpa. And the Alshich wants to know, why does it say that? Again, it should have just said with the sons of Bilha and Zilpa. But it says with the sons of Bilha and with the sons of Zilpa. Now the rule is, remember, there are no extra words in the Torah. Everything there is for a reason, and therefore we could have contracted this pasuk, and it should just have said that he was a lad with the sons of Bilha and Zilpa. Why say with the sons of Bilha and with the sons of Zilpa? The sons of Bilha and Zilpa. That would have been good. That would have surely conveyed the message just as well. Unless, of course, there's another message, and we'll get to that shortly. Omro Nishe Oviv, and it says the sons of Bilha and Zilpa, his father's wives. Well, we know that they are his father's wives. We read that in the previous Parshas. We know the story of Rachel and Leah giving their maidservants who are promoted to become wives to Yakov as a primary wife. Why does it have to repeat that and say that now? That they are his father's wives. That's rather stating the obvious. And then it says the following. Let's go on. Milo Yoda Kinoshav Hema, to put it in the words of the Alshich, who doesn't know that they're Bilha and Zilpa are his father's wives? So why does it say that? And then it says, Yosef. And why does it say that Yosef brought a bad report to their father? What's that got? Why does that jump into what came before that? They shepherded his brothers with the flock, and they brought a bad report. What's one got to do with the other? The interesting thing in the next pasuk is the first word. But Yisrael ahav Yosef, and Israel loved Joseph from all his sons. As the Alshich puts it, Yisrael ahav lama kar Yisrael v'lo Yakov kasher b'pesukim mekadim. Up until now, he's been referred to as Yakov, and Yakov dwelt in the land of his father's sojourning. These are the generations of Yakov. And then suddenly it says Yisrael. Why does it say that Yisrael loved him from all of his sons? Last question. Omra v'yira Echov, and the brothers saw, ki im oviv aheva mapasha Yosef alzeh sheyisna Isai. That if it's the case that his father loves him, why should that cause the brothers to hate him? Jealousy, yes, but envy perhaps, but hate? Those are the questions the Alshich asks. I hope that's been made clear. I hope I said that clearly for you. And here we come, by analyzing this carefully, to exactly what led to the first fissure, the first split in the Jewish people. And see, as we're going through this, you can see yourself if this creates echoes and mirrors other fissures in the Jewish people, either the historical one at the time of the destruction of the Second Temple, and there was conflict between the rabbis at the time of the First Temple, which I'll be talking about shortly, or indeed even some contemporary fissures as well. Let's have a look at that. We start again. Elatod is Yakov, Yosef. So I'm not going to take you through the Alshich, just the questions. I'll tell you outside what the Alshich says. These are the generations of Yakov. It means that all that Yakov had accomplished, had acquired, all the wisdom he'd acquired through his entire life, that was manifest, personified in Yosef. Now, normally, as it says in Pirkei there are various stages of a person's life. 18 is when you're supposed to get married. 40 is when you're supposed to have gained wisdom, etc. There's various stages in a person's life. But all of those stages which Yakov passed through, and as it were, passed with flying colors, absorbing the things he's supposed to absorb and achieving the things he was supposed to achieve at those stages in his life, then all of that, all that he had acquired throughout all of his generations, then that he passed on to Yosef. And Yosef, Eli told us Yakov, all that he had acquired, Yosef was Yosef. Now it says he was Ben Sheva Esra Shana. Now Rashi, if you remember, says later on when he says he was a lad, because our question was, if he was 17 years of age, obviously he was a lad. And Rashi says a very interesting thing. He did laddish, boyish things. He stood in the mirror and arranged his hair, make sure he looked smart and handsome, as young people do when they admire themselves. This doesn't really quite fit with him being this wise person, even at 17 years of age, wisdom beyond his age, who's absorbed all of Yaakov's wisdom from an entire life, and he's looking at himself in the mirror, examining himself, thinking how handsome he is. But we'll come back to that 17 in a second. But then it says, Hoyeroy is Echov Batzayin. This is very important. I think this will probably make a mark for me there you go. Hoyeroy is Echov, if I can move that across, Batzayin. You can see that little thing I've emphasized there. He shepherded the flock with his brothers. So I should say the Alshich said, he shepherded Hatzon im Echov. It says, Hoyeroy is Echov Batzayin. But it says he shepherded with his brothers the flock. Sounds clumsy. The problem here is this word S, which comes up a lot in our analysis. S. What does S mean? Now, we studied that not too long ago when we looked at Avram Avinu negotiating to get the cave of Machpelah. But S as a word normally carries no translation. If we have to translate it, then we translate it as with, if you recall from that shiur. So let's imagine we're translating it with nothing. Then with no translation, then it will say, 17 years of age, Hoyeroya Echov Batzayin. He shepherded his brothers with the flock. You shepherd sheep. How do you shepherd brothers? And the answer is, as the Alshich says, precisely that he was shepherding the brothers. You see, because it sounds strange to shepherd the brothers, most translators translate that as with. And then it's sort of like, it doesn't cause any headaches. And then it makes sense. He was shepherding the flock with his brothers. But as the Alshich said, that's not exactly how it goes. He shepherded, Hoyeroyas Echov, he shepherded his brothers with the flock. How do you shepherd the brothers? Well, Yakov was obviously the head of the family, but Yakov was an old man and didn't come out of his tent. He sat there learning Torah. But when the brothers were outside shepherding, then who was it that was in charge of the family? It was Yosef. But he was the second youngest of all the brothers. There wasn't actually much age difference between the brothers, but there was enough of an age difference. And you'll probably know this. I don't know this because I don't have any siblings. But I'm guessing that if you have any younger brothers, if they tried to boss you about when you were a kid, you probably resented it very much indeed. And indeed, they did resent it very much indeed. So therefore, it's telling you that he shepherded his brothers. Now, I don't know, switch off the sharing for a second. I don't know if you've ever seen a shepherd with a sheepdog shepherding a flock. You can YouTube this, I suppose. It's amazing. Now, of course, in England, where the motorways, the freeways, are often surrounded by fields, you often see sheep, cattle grazing by the side of the freeway. It never occurred to me that might not be very good from the point of view of pollution being absorbed into the meat, but that's another question altogether. But you do see wildlife. You certainly see sheep and flocks very, very commonly in England, which you don't see in the United States. So basically, if you watch this, you will see the following thing. The shepherd has trained its dog, and there's various whistles that he gives, and it tells the dog what to do. So, for example, I don't know, but it's something like this. Means go to the right, means go to the left, and then means crouch down. You can watch this. And then 4 whistles or something, move forward, and that's more or less all you need to get the dog to do. You see, when the dog approaches the sheep move away from the dog. The dog doesn't have to bite or bark. It simply moves near to the sheep, and the sheep, as one, after all, they are called sheep, move en masse to one side. And if the shepherd wants to move forward, then he moves the dog to the left, and they will go to the other side, move forward, and he gets the dog to, it's very interesting to watch. But the thing about it is it's subtle. The shepherd doesn't have to actually prod or get the dog to bite. It's just enough of an insinuation, a hint, and that gets the sheep moving. It was very, very similar when Yosef was in charge of the brothers. He's aware, now he's wise. He's truly inherited all of his father's wisdom, says the Alshich. That's what it says to Elitaudas, all the wisdom of his lifetime. So he knows that it might be that if he goes and says to the brothers if they're doing something wrong, hold on a minute, you shouldn't be doing this. They're going to say, who are you to talk to me? I'm your big brother. Get out of here. But because he knows, he insinuates, and really, you will notice, I'm sure, if you're a father, or if you remember when you were a child, and certainly if you're a husband or a wife, then you will know that very often a wise partner or a member of the family unit, to make sure that people do what you want them to do, it's often a good idea to let them think it was their idea, even though it comes from you. You subtly let them come to the conclusion they should come to, and then congratulate them on the fact that they did so. That would, as it were, sum up the word shepherding in this sense. Yosef shepherded his brothers. It wasn't, if I can use that rather horrible contemporary phrase, in your face. He didn't say you must do this. It was subtle. Let's return to share our screen and we can look at that again. So here we are. So therefore it says over here, 17 years of age, he shepherded his brothers with the flock. And incidentally, I have to point out to you, when it says that he was 17 years of age and he was a nar, that Rashi tells us that what he did was he looked at himself in the mirror and he was always arranging his hair. There's a very interesting Rambam. The Rambam says that if you're told you're going to be a king, and Yosef was told he was going to be a king, it is the halachic responsibility of a king to have his barber with him all times and every day to have his hair trimmed and made sure there's not a stray hair, everything is perfect. Because you're a king, you have to look good. When he's looking at himself in the mirror and making sure his hair is all right, it's because he's got to be a king. But let's go back to leave the Rambam for a second and come back to the Alshich. So he was 17 years of age and he shepherded his brothers. So he was in charge of the brothers, but he didn't do it in a way that would enrage them or get their anger or jealousy to grow. No, he was subtle about it. So he shepherded his brothers, Batsoin, along with the flock. And then it says Ar, and he was a lad. Who was a lad with? Es b'nei Bilha, and the Huva Anar, as we just explained, means that he was behaved like an Ar to mislead the brothers, that they thought he was. In other words, he was behaving like the younger brother, not like the older brothers. The older brother. And then it says, and he was a nar es with the sons of Bilha, the es b'nei Zilpah, and with the sons of Zilpah. Neshei Aviv, the brother, the wives of his father. And then he brings a bad report to their father. Now this is crucial here. What was it that he brought a bad report about? So the rabbis say he brought a bad report about the sons of Leah. Of course, there are 4 groups in the family: sons of Rachel, 2; the sons of Leah, 6; Bilhah and Zilpah, 2 each. And it says that he was with the sons of Bilhah and Zilpah. But what was the bad report that he brought to the father? The bad report that he brings to the father is that he accuses the sons of Leah, that's his 6 older brothers, of doing 3 things wrong. And some of them are quite dramatic. The first thing he accuses them of, as Rashi explains, is what's called Aver Minachai, eating the limb of a live animal, which of course is a primary Torah prohibition. He also accused them of sexual immorality, also a Torah prohibition. The third thing he accused them of was speaking disparagingly and mockingly to their half-brothers, the sons of Bilhah and Zilpah. These sons of Bilhah and Zilpah who are mentioned here in the Pasuk, accusing them of being the sons of slaves, because their mothers were maidservants who were promoted to wives. Of course, for all 3, Yosef was actually punished for accusing them of being the sons of slaves. Well, he became a slave in Egypt. Accusing them of sexual immorality, he was himself accused of attempted rape of Potiphar's wife, of sexual immorality, and accusing them of eating the limb from a live animal. Well, you remember that the coat was taken from him and given to, dipped in the blood of a lamb and given to the father as evidence of his death. So for each thing that he did wrong, because the accusations were incorrect, I nearly said the word false, but that suggests something different. If you make a false accusation, it tends to suggest you know it's false. At least it has that connotation. But he didn't get a false accusation. He honestly believed this to be true. With regards to the eating the limb from a live animal, he believed that to be true because what happened was they'd shechted an animal. They'd slaughtered the animal by cutting the animal's throat. An animal, once it's had its throat cut, which is the most humane way to do it, with a very sharp knife and no pressure on the blade, severing both the main arteries, and then blood stops going to the brain, and the animal is dead instantaneously. I know this. First of all, there's also the experiments that were done to prove that. My own father died when I was 18 on Purim morning. I got a phone call to come home. He wasn't well, but that's why my mother knew that he died of his 21st heart attack. And the doctor came, and my father had not been feeling well, had taken to bed, and had reached over to his bedside table and taken his various medications, his tablets in his hand, and he was taking them like that. It was found, he was lying there dead with his hand like that. He hadn't gotten to his mouth, and he died. The heart stopped, blood stopped going into the brain, and my father died instantly, painlessly and instantly. It's the same when you shecht an animal. The blade being so sharp with no nicks in it and no pressure on the blade severs. It's like a paper cut. You don't feel it immediately. Same with this. You don't feel it. And by the time you would feel it, the animal's dead anyway. However, it doesn't look very nice because the animal, even though you can put electrodes to the brain and show the animal's actually dead, still thrashes about. Up till 10 minutes after it's dead, it can still have a muscular reaction and kick. I once knew a shaukat who had his leg catastrophically broken by a dead cow that kicked it, and he used a crutch ever afterwards because of that. He saw them shechting an animal, or rather, he saw an animal which had been shechted, but was still moving. That was the bit when he came into the scene. He sees the scene when they're butchering the animal, which is dead, but it was still moving, and he thought they were eating the limb from a live animal. Incorrect. On the other, the accusation of sexual immorality, I actually don't know. I must research that exactly what he thought they were doing that was immoral, but he believed it to be true. And with regards to speaking about their half brothers and speaking disparagingly about them, he also believed that to be true. Now let's pause for a second. If, as we said before, if we look at the pasuk here, it told us Yakov Vayeshev. If he was indeed the inheritor of his father's role and his father's wisdom, then what did he do wrong in bringing a bad report? The Yosef is dibosim ro'al avihim. They had a parent-teacher conference a week ago in a yeshiva I teach in here in New York. And when I was in England and many schools I taught there, parent-teacher evening it was called, when you sit and you discuss with the parents the progress or otherwise of their son or their daughter. Now, suppose you know that a boy is behaving badly. And at the beginning of the year, there's the first parent-teacher conference. You sit across the table and you suppress that knowledge. At the end of the year, things have got worse, and you have another parent-teacher conference, and you say to the mother and father, actually, I have to tell you, this has been happening the whole year, and I didn't want to tell you about it when I met you in December. This is now June. The parents might easily and justifiably say, you mean you knew about this then and you didn't tell us? After all, a teacher acts, in the legal phrases, in loco parentis, in the place of the parent. You're expected, and you can expect from a teacher the same role, to take the same role as a parent. And therefore, wouldn't you be upset if the parent knew something was going wrong and didn't act? But if the teacher suppresses or hides that information, how can the parents deal with this? Well, if Yosef absolutely believes, accurately believes them to be guilty of 3 important crimes, why shouldn't he tell his father? But let's look at this. With regards to the speaking detrimentally about the brothers, let's go back to this. It says Joseph brings a bad report about to the father. Comes back. Let's see what that was about. Before that, it says Huna'ar he was a lad with the sons of Bilhan with the sons of Zilpah, Neshei Aviv. Why does it say Neshei Aviv, which we said was patently obvious? And the answer is it's telling you how Yosef considered the Bnei Zilpah, Bilhah, and the sons of Zilpah, who he thought the sons of Leah had disparaged because their mothers had been promoted to wives from being maidservants. He was a lad with the sons of Bilhah and with the sons of Zilpah. Why does it split it up? We said, why not say Bilhah and Zilpah? And the answer is very simple. You see, he accuses the sons of Leah of speaking disparagingly about them, but maybe he did too. Maybe also, as a son of one of Yakov's primary wives, 2 primary wives, maybe he also considered them to be second-class citizens. Maybe he also spoke disparagingly about them. But he didn't speak disparagingly about them when they were together, the sons of Bilhah and Zilpah. Why? Because Bilhah was his mother's maidservant. And so, out of respect for his mother, he spoke nicely about them, or didn't disparage them when they were together. To disparage the sons, Zilpah's sons, Zilpah is Leah's maidservant, would be to embarrass also his mother's maidservant sons. So when they were together, he didn't say anything nasty about them. But when they were apart, when he saw the sons of Zilpah on their own, that's when he disparaged them. That's why the Pasuk splits them up. He was with the sons of Bilhah and the sons of Zilpah. When they were separate, Neshei Aviv, he still considered them to be his father's wives. Different to what we said was the accusation of he has to about the sons of Leah, that they considered them not to be the father's wives. Even though they're apart, he also considered them both to be his father's wives and their sons to be proper sons. So therefore, he brings a bad report to his father. What's he done wrong? I would argue and put it to you, nothing. He's done absolutely nothing wrong. It's his role to tell. In fact, as you know, in the laws of Shmir Saloshan, there is an exception when you're not allowed to say something negative about somebody if it's true, Lashon Hara, except if it's for a positive purpose. So this is a positive purpose. He is the true inheritor of Yaakov's wisdom. He is subtly occupying the role of head of the family. He's shepherding his brothers, and he sees them doing something wrong. He must tell his father. To do anything otherwise would be remarkably irresponsible. But what happens straight after this? Well, what happens straight after that? It says, the Israel of Yakov Mikol Bonov, and Israel loved Yosef from all of his sons. Ki ben zakonim halakid is the son of his old age, but also like a tanis basim, and he makes for him a special garment. He makes a special garment. Now, with regards to this, it looks, if we read this in English, it would simply be a sequitur. It would be not a non sequitur, it would follow. He comes and tells his father the sons of Leah have done terrible things. The father believes this and loves Yosef more than anybody else, to the extent of making a special garment. It would seem rather as though he succeeded in persuading and convincing Yakov that his report about the sons of Leah is accurate. As a consequence, he's negated his father's love for them and has been able to monopolize it all for himself. That would be how they would look at it. But Chas v'shalom, God forbid, to think that Yaakov would view the sons of Leah negatively as a result of hearing a report. Even if somebody tells you Lashon Hara and it's accurate, you are allowed to believe it to the extent that it might be true. But without any other evidence, you have no clear proof. And that's why it changes his name from Yaakov that's been using up to now and says to Yisrael Ohav. And Israel loved Yosef, Mikol Bonov. He loved him as Yisrael. Remember, Yaakov's got two names. Yakov is the main name that he has, but then when he supersedes the limits that the name Yakov described, and it was given by the angel a new name. You fought with me, you beat me, good, you're now called Yisrael. Yisrael is a much higher spiritual level, and the basis of Yaakov's love for his son Yosef was as Yisrael. All of his Yosef, Mikol Bonov, from all of his sons, he bends a cunning because he was the son of his old age. But the Alshich says, no, he wasn't. I pause, let you chew that one over for a second. No, he wasn't. Who was the son of Yaakov's old age? Well, Yosef is Rachel's oldest son. Rachel has two sons. Binyamin is the son of Yaakov's old age. So it can't possibly be the case that he loves him because he's the son of his old age, which is what the Torah says in the eyes of the sons of Leah. Don't tell me he loves him because he's the son of his old age. There's another son of his old age, Binyamin. That's not why he loves them. That's not why he gives them this special garment. He loves them because that Joseph has poisoned our father against us. It says Israel loved him. He wasn't poisoned against him. From all those sons. He bends the cunning Malloy. It wasn't that he loved him because of the son of his old age. It's true there's another son. It wasn't because of that. The word Zakunim, what does Ben Zokin mean? Zakunim is the word Zokin, is got three meanings in Hebrew. The first meaning is Zokin is a beard. If you have a beard, that's a Zokin. Zokin also means age, old age. And Zokin is also a euphemism for wisdom. Of course, all these three definitions are interrelated and connected. After all, a young boy doesn't really grow a beard. I was only able to grow a beard in my 30s. Gosh, 10 years ago. I was only able to grow a beard in my 30s. When you get to a certain maturity, a certain age, then facial hair appears, and then eventually it becomes thick enough to actually form a beard. So a beard comes with age, and with age, hopefully comes wisdom. These three elements combine here. He was the son of his old age, as we said before, when it says Elitodas Yakov, all the genius of Yakov had acquired through his lifetime, all his wisdom was passed to Yosef, and that's why he loves him. He bends the Kunimuloi, because he was the son of his wisdom, just as we said before. But the brothers don't see that. The brothers, that can't be the reason. There's another. They took it to mean that it's because of the poisoning that his father had done, because it can't be because he's the apple of his eye, because he's the youngest and the tenderest, but somebody is even more young and more tender. And then the Alshich says something which is very important. And then Yaakov made him a special garment. What is this special garment? Rashi says it's a katainus pasim, says Rashi, is fine wool. What's a katainus? And here the Alshich demonstrates absolute brilliance. The Alshich says that what a katainus is, well, I will demonstrate for you. It's a garment, right? A garment. Here is a garment. This is my jacket, or sometimes in America they call it my coat, but it's a jacket. And ask yourself the question, or rather, let me ask you the question, you can answer it. Is my jacket on me? Is my jacket on me? Well, the answer is yes, no. My jacket's on my shirt. Is my shirt on me? The answer is no, it's on my talus cotton. Is my talus cotton on me? No, it's on my, in the UK we call it a vest, in America call it an undershirt. It's on my undershirt. Is my undershirt on me? Yes, my undershirt is on me. So what was it that Yakov gave Yosef that caused all the anger between the brothers, as it were, sealed the fracture that was occurring? A woolly undershirt. But please, let's be realistic. As I say, I don't have any siblings, but I can imagine, and I'm sure most of you do, if somebody was to come in, a younger brother, and say, "Oh, Dad really likes me. He gave me a woolly undershirt, a woolly vest." What would you say? Oh, really? Oh, yes, that really proves he loves you. Maybe he'll give you some cotton socks next. I mean, it's a nothing. Although the rabbis say that this indeed was still a mistake that Yaakov made. You must not give or show any favoritism for one child over the other. But the Alshich says that the garment that he gave him, there is such a thing that the Talmud talks about all the time. The garment that a Talmud Chacham wears. And he was the greatest Talmud Chacham. Yosef was the greatest Talmud Chacham in the family. He gave him such a garment. And that should have been a sign to the rest of the family that he was indeed in my own family. I've got one of my sons who is a huge Talmud Chacham, and his brothers are very happy to turn to their brother to ask shilas and ask, is this kosher? It's not kosher. What's the halacha on this? Because they know that he knows more than them. And there's no enmity. So that was what Yaakov's intention was, but it caused them to come to a different conclusion. They concluded that favoritism was a symptom of the character assassination that Yosef had carried out and them being successful. And then it says, let's read the next bit. Yakov, and the brothers saw, Yakov, and the brothers saw that one their father loved from all the brothers, including Binyamin. So don't give me this nonsense about oldest son, a youngest son. There's a younger son. But Yisrael said they hated him, below Yochru Dabra L'Shalom, and they weren't able to speak to him in peace. And interestingly, if you look at the word L'Shalom, and this is not the Alshich, this is the Balaturim, then it's spelled with what's called a Vov Kaser, a little dot there for the missing Vov. That should be a Vov like that. It's missing. Why is it missing? So the Balaturim says, with it missing and just the dot implying it, then if you count up, then you get the following. Shin is 300. Lamed is 30. We've got two 30s. So 360. And Mem is 40. So therefore, it's 400. 400 was the number of years that the Jewish people would be originally intended to suffer the exile in Egypt as a consequence of the fact that they could no longer speak in peace with each other. Interesting. So let's go back to our big question. What did Yosef do wrong? And what did the brothers do wrong? Ultimately, they both did the same thing wrong. When Yosef sees the brothers do the three things that he considers them to be guilty of, but if they weren't guilty, and the rabbis make it quite clear they weren't guilty of that, it was obviously by definition only the appearance of doing something wrong, then what should Yosef have done? Well, there's a mitzvah in the Torah of Don Lakaskus. You should give somebody the benefit of the doubt. He didn't. I wrote a book on the subject of Sinas Kinam, because the hatred between the brothers and Joseph ultimately was Sinas Kinam. And the book is called Building Tomorrow, Sinas Kinam, how it starts, how it spreads, and how to get rid of it for good. And there's a chapter there in chapter 4 on page 50, in which somebody called the Pele Yoetz quotes the Posuk in Vayikra, when the Torah in 1719, that's Perik 17, chapter 17, verse 19, says, do not hate your brother in your heart. And obviously, it should have just said, don't hate your brother. Why say in your heart? So somebody called the Pele Yoetz, he says the following thing. Listen, I'll read this bit to you. Hatred for another is most toxic and deadly when it remains hidden in somebody's heart. While superficially he pretends there's nothing wrong at all, this is a condition for which there is no cure. When enmity exists between two people and they show it and make their hatred clear, a mediator can come along, deal with the issues, and help reestablish friendship. If everyone keeps your hatred concealed and hidden, no remedy is possible, and hatred lasts forever. Additionally, a person cannot protect himself from what his enemy might do, as he's filled him with the smoothness of his tongue, that all is well between them. That's why the Torah says, don't hate your brother in your heart. Well, it seems here they didn't keep it in their heart. They made it quite clear. They couldn't speak to him in peace. He has to know that they don't like him very much. But leaving that aside, what did he fail in? He failed in the midst of Don Lukaskus. And Don Lukaskus is, and this is such an important mitzvah, how many family fractures. As I said, this is an echo of the big fractures in the Jewish people, but the daily small fractures that occur in every, not every, but so many Jewish families is what I'm trying to say. And if somebody's hurt your feelings, then here's what you've got to do. There's a mitzvah be Don Lukaskus. You're supposed to go to the person and say, look, it seems that you hurt me very badly. I think you hurt me very badly because I think you did this, that, and the other. Now, the nice thing, the incredible thing about doing this mitzvah is if you do it and you go to the person to challenge them, it seems, you've got to say it that way, it seems to me that you did such and such. And then at least you're giving them the message that you're almost sure, but you're willing to extend to them, as it were, the benefit of the doubt. But when you say it to them, and this is why it's a very satisfying mitzvah to do so many times, it seemed to me obvious that somebody did something and there could be no possible explanation other than the one that I'd come to. And then you challenge them, say, it strikes me that you did such and such, and they turn around. And here's the three possibilities. Then, no, I didn't. And offer you another alternative in which a different narrative emerges totally. And you've protected yourself by saying, it seems to me. You didn't say, I saw you do this. You said, it seems to me that you did this. And when it seems to me, you've given yourself, you've given them the honor of saying, I'm not yet convinced, but it seems to me. And you look for an explanation. And sometimes you get it, and a totally different version of events occurs. So that's one possible outcome of going to somebody to say, it seems that you did something wrong. Number two is, they could say, yeah, I did do something. And maybe they hurt you. I did do something. But I've been too embarrassed and too ashamed that I did it. I haven't been able to come and apologize. And I'm glad you've challenged me about this, because I really am very sorry. You're right, I did do it, and I'm bitterly ashamed, and I really regret it terribly. That's another possible outcome. And there's a third outcome, that they did do it, and they've got no regret. I did it. I hurt you. I don't care. I hate you. Then if somebody is like that, then that's not called in you reacting to them with enmity. That's not called sinas chinam, hatred for no reason. Now they've given you a very good reason, and they've admitted that it is legitimate. But as there are three possibilities, and two of them will produce positive outcomes, the way that you secure those positive outcomes is to go to somebody and say, it seems to me. The failure of Vayeshev was to go to the brothers and say, it seems to me that you ate Ever Minachai, the limb from a live animal. It seems to me you were involved in sexual immorality. It seems to me that you were disparaging the sons of Bilhah and Zilpah. He failed and went straight to his father. The brothers too. It seemed to them that their father hated Joseph because he had poisoned him against them. It seemed to them that the excuse or the explanation is because he was the son of his old age was absolutely a hollow excuse, because after all, there's Binyamin. And that blinded to the fact that there could be another excuse, rather, explanation, that Ben Zakrim, he loved him because he was the biggest Talmud Chacham, which in a Frum family would be a perfectly natural and a cause of rejoicing even among siblings. We've got a brother who's such a big Talmud Chacham. The ultimate failure, which led to the first fracture, which led to the exile in Egypt, which was meant to be 400 years, but thank God, indeed thank God, Hashem commuted the sentence from 400 to 210 years. That was all caused because they couldn't speak to each other in peace, because they failed in the midst of Don Lukaskus. How many personal friendships have you or I lost because we considered them to have done something unkind or hurtful to us, but we didn't do in the midst of Don Lukaskus. So it's a very satisfying mitzvah when you actually phrase it that way. It seems to me, get an alternative, and you stop a fracture occurring in the first place. But it's important to be Don Lukaskus. Don't bear the grudge in your mind. You've got this thing you believe that he did wrong or she did wrong, and you keep it there. You don't challenge them, and you keep the hatred in your heart. It doesn't give the person that even notices there's something wrong with the relationship, and then they can say, did I do something to upset you? So we learned something very important tonight. a historical insight into what caused the destruction of two temples, what causes the destruction of communities and of families and of friendships, the failure to do the mitzvah of don l'chaskos. That's something which we all have to pay serious attention to. And as I say, when you do it, you feel good about yourself that you did give somebody the benefit of the doubt. You did allow them. You did invite them to give you an explanation. And if you phrase it cleverly, it seems, rather than you did, then you've given yourself an out without you being embarrassed either. And we can secure a friendship, a family, a community, a people, and if we do it properly, the rebuilding of the Beis Hamikdash. And we wish you all a wonderful Shabbos, and I look forward to seeing you again all next week.